One of my 2026 goals is getting deeper into things I enjoy, learning more intentionally, understanding my media consumption habits at a base level. Like, why do I like what I like? Everything doesn't need a grand explanation, but some things can do with that. And in this process, I've been starting my baby academic analysis by reading Bell Hooks All About Love. I find the topic of love fascinating, and this is a holy grail feminist text. It's easy to get into, so it's a great place to start. Coincidentally, this neatly fit into my enjoyment of this messy UK therapy style reality TV show called Blue Therapy. We're following 8 couples trying to work through their interpersonal issues that they're having in their relationships with licensed therapist Karen Doherty. I think that's how you say it. And this seems like a show that wouldn't work. Therapy is a really personal and vulnerable space. Oftentimes, it takes people multiple sessions to even open up. And a lot of the people who went to the sessions are skeptics, specifically the men. Also, the way it's shot, they have a lot of B roll or behind the scenes footage. And if you know anything about reality TV, this can come off as very scripted and staged. And you can't have that come across on a show that's supposed to be about honesty and being open. But the couples really put themselves out there, and this really worked for me. I have lots of feelings and thoughts about these people. I obviously don't personally know them, so my commentary only goes so far, but I'm going to be discussing what was shown and I'm going to be judging them. You know, it is what it is. So let's get into it. Starting with Mons and Shay, our first couple. They're a lesbian couple, so some LGBTQ plus representation. I love all types of mess, so diversity is welcomed. We learn they've been together for 2.5 years, and it's been a tumultuous 2.5 years because she's a cheater. She's also a DJ, which facilitates the cheating. Mons is walking us through their initial meeting. She had no idea who Shay was. It was like an organic meetup until they became social media official and she started receiving DMs about Shay being a cheater, which she chose to ignore and experience the relationship for herself. It was at this point my sympathy started waning just a little bit for her. I was thinking about the diva, Erica De Niro. Check out her channel, she's fab. She always uses this analogy of a restaurant. Before you go out on your nice dinner, sexy outfit on, you read the reviews, to know what to expect. And everyone's saying there's rats, there's roaches, the staff is rude, the food is undercooked, the building is falling apart at the seams. It's just a mess. But you go anyway thinking your experience is going to be different. Then you're shocked at the rats. You don't understand why you have food poisoning. How could the staff treat you the way they did? And you want the rest of us to be outraged and have sympathy and feel bad for you. And the problem is you thought you were special. You thought you were the exception and not the rule, so you get what you get. And I don't want to kick Mons while she's down because she's clearly going through a lot. But sister, you were warned. So like what must happen now? Like anyway, listening to more of their story, Mons is painting this picture for us about how Shay's a liar. She always has a script ready and she's constantly crossing her boundaries, the typical cheater shenanigans. And now, hearing from Shay's point of view, she's not doing herself any favors. She's talking about temptation and how she's always receiving attention and girls come to her. It's not her fault.
If you have the confidence to walk up to me,
that's appealing, that's sexy, that's attractive.
yeah, like.
And now I have to whack Shay. She clearly has deeper issues because she seems like an attention whore. Even her friends are on top of her because they know she's easily swayed.
The common issue that you can't control yourself when you go out.
When we went out the other day or whenever,
No, you was trying to creep on something.
Are you not?
The therapist makes a note that it seems it's not necessarily temptation, but that she's actively looking for the attention, which I completely agree with. When you're in a relationship, No one's saying become blind. There's obviously people who look good, have a great vibe, but you have to understand, the commitment that you made and respect your partner. And if you can't do that, just stay single. Like, no one's forcing you to be in a relationship. Like, don't string other children along and have them crying every night, wondering if you're doing what you're supposed to do. Like, I just think like cheating is so cruel. We also find out this is her first serious long-term relationship, and every other relationship has ended because she always cheats. Not only that, we learn she goes after straight women. Why? Question mark, question mark. She doesn't really have a concrete thought process behind it, but some speculation on our side. She likes to feel special, like the chosen one. She also likes a challenge and the thrill that comes with chasing after, women who wouldn't typically go for her, which concerns me because clearly she's always looking for excitement, something new, which is why she's always cheating. There's a steadiness required in long-term relationships, appreciation for, the known, being content with what you currently have. And I just don't think she's ready for that. At some point during the session, after being confronted about her behaviors, she starts to get emotional. Her behavior is being flipped, and she's asked how would she feel if Mons acted the way that she was in the relationship, and she wouldn't accept it. Obviously, she also realizes like Mons is at her breaking point and she might lose her. I'm not gonna lie, I was slightly annoyed at her tears. I'm going to be that person. It feels like a manipulation tactic. She's projecting this, this image of Lisa, that she's hurt, and it felt like, she had to force the tears out. It really feels to me she's only crying to get an empathetic reaction from Mons, because, seeing someone you love breaking down does make you want to like stop the argument and, comfort them and help them through their emotion. But sometimes, sister, you must just cry and then we can carry on once you stopped. So this didn't move me, especially because after all of this, she still places a lot of the blame on Mons about how Mons needs to step back a little and trust her.
I just need that extra bit of trust.
And not be so overbearing. Mind you, she hasn't done anything to gain her trust back. She only destroys it further by acting like her behaviors are not crossing a line. And to be slightly fair to Shay, we do learn Mons is a homebody. They've just moved and it's quite far from civilization. So Mons does feel isolated and attached to Shay in a seemingly unhealthy way. It also seems most of her socialization is through Shay, which is obviously an issue. Like, you can't place that much pressure on one person. And you're probably asking yourself, we are the friends, family, somebody, anybody. We learn she's an only child, so no siblings, cross that out. And also, when she gets into relationships, her friendships usually fall by the wayside. Her excuse is when she gets into relationships, she likes to keep things private, and because of this, those relationships fall off, and I'm gonna call bullshit on that. I have friends who are in serious relationships, have been in serious relationships, and some of them don't share much other than, things are going good, and we leave it at that, because clearly you don't want to talk about it, which is fine. Our relationships and lives are a lot more than romantic relationships, so not talking about or not talking deeply about one aspect, it doesn't break down our entire relationship. The therapist even notes this is not healthy, and it seems that they're merging. I found an article online speaking about this specifically, like merging in lesbian relationships. If you'd like to read this further, I'll leave it in the description bar. But basically, Mons is too intertwined with Shay, and she's made her entire being this relationship. She's her everything, her friend, her partner, her roommate. She needs to have her own life and have her own social needs met by other people. And she doesn't take this very well. She gets emotional and leaves the session. She feels frustrated, like they're saying she's lonely and she doesn't have friends, and that she's very controlling, and she's particularly upset by the words that they're using in the session. And I understand this. It kind of feels like Shay's like flipping it into, Mons wants to be underneath me, 24/7, and she doesn't want me to go out, when literally all she's saying in the session is she only wants one day in a month where it's all about them, which I think there's a balance. One date a month to me is a little bit ridiculous. Most people I know who work full-time jobs and have responsibilities try to get at least like one date night a week, or at least like one every 2 weeks. So her standards are really in hell. She seems to be so starved of emotional intimacy. So Shay should make herself more available, answer her phone, update Mons when she's going to be out longer than usual. Like, just keep in communication, especially because silence is a trigger for Mons, as that's usually when Shay is up to no good. And honestly, my opinion, I don't think they should be together. I think they both need solo therapy sessions to get to the bottom of their behaviors, and also get to a point where they agree on what cheating is. Mons needs to establish friendships and relationships outside of romantic ones, and Shay also needs to get to the bottom of why she's such an attention whore. One of my favorite aspects of the show is we do get an update, and it is a while after their last sessions with Karen. So 5 months later, specifically, we get an update, and they are still together and still attending therapy. So I guess we're halfway there. Hopefully, they can sort their problems out and make it work, since clearly something in this relationship that they want to hold on to. So, wishing them well. Moving on to Carmen and Junior, our next couple. So they've been together for 20 years, not consecutively. They have briefly separated for 2 years, but for the most part, they've been together. These baby pictures of them were so cute, to illustrate the passage of time. We also have another DJ, and their main issue is communication. They feel they're at a point where it's breaking their family apart and they need help. You can immediately see this is definitely an issue because they're speaking over each other.
Seriously, with like
I don't feel like
big decisions
I don't feel like
for
you
the
take.
family.
I don't feel like you take me seriously.
They don't allow the other to finish their sentence. It kind of feels like they're already defending their individual points before the other even finishes the thought. Like, they want to be right, and they're not necessarily speaking to each other to understand one another. It's about who's right and who's wrong. We also learn after their initial breakup, this 2-year break, they got back together because Carmen and their baby suffered a near-death experience. And let's not waste life being mad at each other. Mind you, this baby was conceived while they were on the break, so you can already see this whole thing. It's a mess. They never addressed what drove them apart in the first place, so nothing was fixed. Like, the near-death experience and new baby were just used as a temporary salve, which obviously didn't last. We learn from Junior that his biggest issue that's weighing on his heart is that she requested a divorce on his birthday. He feels really betrayed by this. He actually gets really emotional, and you can see he's still holding on to a lot of resentment. It also upsets him because he doesn't believe in breaking up.
There's no such thing as break up, divorce. Once you've built a family, that's yours, and that's yours for life.
And I was slightly confused by this because they have broken up before. So I'm not sure if that was before they got married or after. But anyway, Carmen's upset at his revelation because she feels he's holding on to grudges. There's things he's done to hurt her as well, but she moves forward and she can't understand why is he always holding on to things. It's really tense because I understand what she's saying. Like, if we're both going to hold on to things, we can never move forward. But also, that is kind of nuts, asking for a divorce on someone's birthday. I think I would be personally questioning your intentions, because clearly you wanted to hurt me and ruin my birthday for the rest of my life. Because, like, why would you do that? Why would you do something like that? And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, this couple just needs help from a third party, for communicating and getting things off their chest, working through their feelings. It doesn't seem like so bad. until he drops a bomb on us and tells us he got a vasectomy without telling her. This is a big deal because they both decided that they would have 4 kids, and she's always wanted to have this big family, and he was in agreement with her. He tries to spew some psycho babble nonsense about it's his body.
The position that I'm in right now is this is my body, and having more kids needs to be my decision.
Don't put no psychology on me because it's not working. I'm the mother.
In most instances, this is fair. I'm very pro-choice, do what you want, it's your body. But in this situation, this is absolutely horseshit. Again, you are allowed to do what you want with your body. But when you're in a marriage, it's not only you, it becomes we. So instead of lying to her, he should have been honest and clear, like, hey, this is a hard line for me. We're in a really dark space, and I don't believe adding another child to the equation is a good thing. And we've been down this oops road before, so I'm going to get a vasectomy. And once we're in a better place, we can discuss a reversal or whatever. But I feel strongly about this, and I think this is what's best for us and the family. I feel like that's reasonable. Like, I would be on his side if that was the case. But to add on to this, he was also meant to freeze his sperm, because you never know what can happen. Not all reversals are successful. They're an older couple. Lots of complications, can arise in life. He didn't get his sperm frozen, and he lied to her and said that he did. His excuse for all of this is, there was like a scheduling issue. She's obviously pissed, and she leaves the session early. So everything's up in the air for her. And I understand her. This is a deal breaker for her. She wants more kids. She's always fantasized about having this big family. So she's devastated that that might not be in the cards anymore, because she only wants kids with one man. I completely understand her devastation. And in the next session, we circle back to, how is she feeling since she's had a little bit of time to process this, and she rightfully feels betrayed. And he is now upset with her because betrayal is a strong word. Mind you, he did betray her. He lied. He hid things from her. He's literally changed the course of their relationship without her consent, and it's in a direction she didn't want. That's a betrayal of the trust that she placed on him. Like, it sucks. And we get some insight into his thought process. He felt he needed to get the vasectomy because he feels like he's just a baby making machine. He feels she doesn't actually want him, so he wants her to prove that they are in a good space. She does love him, and it's more than just the kids before he can have one more. I hear what he's saying, but he didn't have to go behind her back to do it. Again, communication. This could have been talked through easily, and this couple upset me because Carmen just concedes to what he's saying. Relationships do require compromise, and you won't always get what you want. Like, it's not always your way or the highway. But this is a huge deal, and she just decides to move on. Meanwhile, he can hold grudges and keep secrets, and everything is hunky-dory. Like, no, man, I didn't like that. He does acknowledge that the way he went about it was not right, and that he doesn't need to protect himself from her. They're a team, and he's supposed to act like it. And I don't think breaking up is the simplest answer for this couple, but I do wonder if the years they've been together and the kids are stopping them from realizing there might be an alternative path to what they're currently doing if they feel so toxic and upset about everything. Co-parenting is also an option. I know some people, you don't want kids growing up without, the family together, but you also don't want them in an environment where the parents are constantly bickering. I'm just not sure about them. Not sure if they need another break just to think things through and see if they still want each other. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. But we get our 5-month update, and they're still in therapy. It's really helping them, and they feel positive about how things are going, and they might be welcoming baby 4 soon. I'm happy to hear things are heading in a positive direction. Hopefully they can keep it that way. I am concerned because she did say this a lot that's on her heart, and we really never got to see her speak her mind about things. So hopefully she's getting to voice that at these continued sessions, and everything works out for them. Moving on to my favorite, well, one of my favorite couples, but it's not for the right reasons, Jay and Daisy. This is a very good looking couple, guys. Like, they're hot. I especially want to make mention of Daisy. Like, this is a baddie. I also love that in all their sessions they were matching their outfits, but clearly this is the only thing they were on the same page about, because this couple is a disaster. So they've been together for 3 years, and we're starting the session discussing Daisy's birthing experience. They have one child together, and how he wasn't very supportive of her during the process. She says the day after she gave birth, he left her for 4 hours to get a tattoo. That's ridiculous. And the fact that he doesn't understand why what he did was wrong is like really vexing. There's a lot of resentment from her part, understandably so, and he feels she's doing a lot because he didn't have a baby. I repeat, he did not have a baby.
I didn't have a baby. I didn't go through anything physically.
But you did have a baby.
Okay.
This was really telling, and it's also going to play in an issue that they have later, but we're going to circle back to that. He also seems really resentful of the fact that she had the baby because they were broken up during the conception. So this is another oops baby. He was moving on when she notified him about the baby, and he seems to be questioning her intention. He notes how convenient it was that she was all of a sudden pregnant. And I don't agree with this thought process because it takes two to tango, but I'm also really curious about what the initial breakup was about, because we never get that clarified, and I feel that's pertinent information, especially like with these two. The therapist asks a very important question. Would they still be together without the baby? She says yes after some time, but she doesn't really clarify or substantiate why she thinks that. He doesn't seem to agree, but he's just nodding and yesing to get along. I personally don't think they would be together without the baby, but again, on to the next issue. It seems they have a really toxic dynamic. She talks about how he's a compulsive liar. She gives an example, right? He bought her a necklace, but he lied about where he got it from. And she knows he's lying because she checked the airport website and looked through every shop and concluded he lied because they don't sell this type of necklace at any of the shops that were at the airport. We do also see a clip of him admitting to lying and doubling down on his lie.
I was doubling down on that lie. I invested Bitcoin into that lie.
And she talks about going through his phone.
I do go through his phone, and I'm absolutely proud of that. Especially as a woman, you need to go through your man's phone. Like, not going through your man's phone is like walking with a blindfold.
And he also goes through her laptops and her phones. In my opinion, if you have to do all of this to be secure in your relationship, something is really wrong. It's one thing to be prompted by a specific situation where you look at someone's phone or their laptop because of like a feeling you have in like a one-time situation. But this, for them, it seems like it's the norm. Always going through everything, checking social media apps, phones, friends' profiles. Like, that sounds so stressful to me. Like, rather be single. Like, I was so stressed out, and I'm only hearing about this stuff. Like, I can't imagine living my life like this. The therapist also mentions that this seems to be a cycle of mistrust between them, and like, clearly they don't trust each other. Why be in a relationship with someone who you don't trust? Like, I don't understand that. We also see that she has like a very tit for tat attitude when it comes to their relationship. We get into this exercise with the prompt being, one thing I'm afraid to tell you, but I need to tell you is. And his confession is he kissed a girl he went on a date with and lied about it. She's obviously pissed because he lied, but that's not the issue. It's her reaction.
And I'll match his energy here. You do me, I do you. This is your karma.
Instead of opening up to him properly, she confesses something she feels is going to hurt him, which is about her guy he seems to be worried about that she's been talking to and organizing date with. Her confession is not the issue because he actually went on a date and kissed this girl, but that instead of being vulnerable, she chose this moment to hurt him. This was also during their break, and I can understand why she's hurt. Maybe the terms of the break weren't clear, and the fact that he was so quick to move on to the next girl really hurt her, and I'm with her there. But instead of communicating that hurt, she immediately wants to hurt him the way she's hurting. She is eventually in tears, and like my heart breaks for her because you can see there's lots of feelings between them, but you can also feel that a lot of the emotions between them are not necessarily very healthy because basically my illustration for you is these two have a lot of hurts from their past, and they seem to have like not a lot of trust for each other. They're on very shaky ground. There's no solid foundation for them, and it seems like it's a mess now. Circling back to my earlier comments about he didn't have kids, we learned that Jay wants more kids, but Daisy's one and done, understandably so. They have a very awkward dinner discussing this because neither of them are willing to compromise on this issue, and rightfully so. This is not an issue where you should compromise. If you want more kids, have somebody who wants more kids. But everything blows up during their sessions. Daisy notes how she doesn't feel safe with him. The bulk of the childcare is on her, and I want you to remember his own words. Ne? When talking about her experience during birth, this was his commentary.
I didn't have a baby. I didn't go through anything physically.
You did have a baby.
Okay.
Childbearing and childcare are very difficult. You go through bodily changes, life changes, and I don't think people who have kids and prepare for it also feel prepared when the baby is there. Like, it's a very different experience. It's different from your fantasies, and I say this as a fake expert because I've worked with kids, and these weren't my own kids, and I wasn't with them 24/7, but I still felt the difficulty in looking after them. Mind you, I was working as a team with parents, so all my sympathies are with Daisy in this. It's really hard, but Jay feels very betrayed by this. He sees himself with like a big family, and obviously he sees his family with her. They did promise each other in the initial stages of their relationship that they were going to have more kids, and he feels she's just changed her mind in the middle of their journey. She feels parenting with him is like having an assistant and not necessarily that they are equal partners. Again, pulling from my own experience, I have been around fathers who were doing their best. They wanted to be parents and were actively in their children's lives, and the bulk of the work was still with the mother. Like, that just is what it is. It sucks, but it's the reality. She even says any more kids she has, she needs to be ready to raise them by herself. He's obviously upset by the statement because he feels like he's always going to be there for his family, and like she's doubting that. But honestly, that's not something that he can promise. I am in no way like trying to put dark energy around them, but life is not promised to anyone, and you always have to be ready to stand on your own. Sometimes you can't be there, and it's not because of a choice that you personally made. So I'm on Daisy's side. Jay is obviously devastated by this, and it's a deal breaker for them. Nothing is resolved by the end of the session. They're the only couple who had 4 sessions so far. It's only been 3, and we don't end off on the best note. There's already tension from the baby thing, and we now have another issue. We have an exercise where they're meant to say what they appreciate about each other. Daisy mentions she appreciates his friendship, and Jay mentions he appreciates their sense of togetherness, to their honesty and care sometimes. And this becomes a big thing. And honestly, I feel like this is because of their underlying issues about like the other things, which inevitably spills into this conversation. He feels she doesn't love him. She doesn't mention anything specific to him, which that is fair, and she's upset that he said sometimes. It really becomes bigger than it needs to be. We start bringing back old wounds, and she leaves. Not just the session, but she leaves him behind. And I thought this was strange because they always get driven to the location. So why on this one particular day did she have her own car? But whatever, I'm not going to think too much about that. 5 months later, we get an update that they are unfortunately no longer together. But they are co-parenting and everything is well so far. I really do feel bad for them because, again, you can tell they have a lot of feelings for each other, but I do agree with them not being together. They aren't on the same page. They don't trust each other. Their goals aren't aligned. I really think, this is for the best. We do hear from Daisy. It might not be the end. They could get back together, but Jay feels their separation is final because he's moved out and his vibe was very, I'm done with this relationship. Like, there's no fixing this. Hopefully for Alora, that's their daughter's name, they can get along and be the best parents for her and just focus on themselves and their own personal developments. Moving on to Viktor and Maria. Where do we start with these two? So Maria wants marriage and Viktor doesn't. Like, that's the beginning and the end of it. But let's get into the middling issues, which circle back to marriage. But let's connect the dots so I can, land the plane. Follow me. Viktor is a white European. My apologies. I don't remember from where exactly, but I'm pretty sure it's like somewhere in Eastern Europe, like maybe one of the Balkan countries. Maria is a Nigerian baddie, and they've been together for 7 years. They're also a social media couple, joint channels and all. And the crux of Viktor's issues is he feels misunderstood by basically everyone. His own family, Maria's family, the world. He doesn't say it, but I feel Maria is silently included in the people who he feels misunderstand him. Starting with his family, he mentions his parents were divorced. He felt like an outcast. He didn't really get along with his siblings. He always feels like he has to have this defensive wall up. And I really empathized with him in this moment because I had a similar upbringing. My parents also divorced. I spent most of my time with my dad and stepmother, and I felt the exact same way. It was like everything I did was like misunderstood, as like I was being rude, and I felt like I always had to be ready to defend my actions because the people around me, they always only saw the worst in me, and I had to like fight that's like what you're seeing is not me. And it really does affect you. You build this wall up and you have this edge to you, like everyone's trying to fight you, and you end up seeing fights even when people aren't arguing with you. So I can definitely see like Viktor exhibiting these behaviors, and I was lucky enough to have an adult who intervened and validated my feelings. So that hasn't carried on into my adulthood, and I have been able to work through those emotions. But I feel like Viktor is still there mentally, like it's him against the world, and I don't think that's a very healthy perspective to have. We see him have a vulnerable conversation with his dad, and instead of talking to Maria about this and opening up about how it made him feel, he's still guarded and only reveals this information when they're with the therapist. It seems like he can't be vulnerable with her. There's just like a wall there, and something a little bit similar with Maria, but it's like not exactly the same thing. We learn she writes poems and she writes them as an outlet for her emotions, but she doesn't share that with him. I somewhat understand this because sometimes things are only for you, but I don't think sharing a poem every now and again is like a bad thing, especially if it's something you're very passionate about. We see he doesn't have the best reaction to her poem, which like validates her secrecy. We also learn she's very close with her family, although it's currently strained because of her relationship with Viktor. Family is everything to her, so it's really bothering her. And this is the opposite with Viktor because, he's a lone wolf. So they're already on opposite sides with their family values. And this comes up when she admits she's been sending money to her mother. The Sparks notes of this is she got a car, but instead of getting a loan with the bank with interest, her mother got it for her cash and then she just paid her mom back. But once the payback term was finished, she continued sending money to her mother. And culturally, like this made sense to me. Like lots of African people send money to their parents. For a lot of different cultures around the world, it's like seen as a blessing to assist your parents in whatever way that is. It's like a karmic thing, it's like the belief that the energy will come back to you. But he gets very upset about this. He even refers to this like she's paying a subscription to her parents. This is such a misunderstanding of culture, and I blame both of them because he can't lower himself and understand where she's coming from. But she also didn't explain this to him, like she just lied about it, and then it became a big issue. And this is not the first time. We also see he says the relationship he has with their parents or her parents is not good. He feels like an outsider. He even calls them these people. She says it's because he makes himself an outsider and refuses to practice certain cultural traditions, i.e., like bowing to your elders. And this became a big hoopla. He talks about respect is earned and not given, and it just makes him uncomfortable. And in this instance, I blame Maria. Again, I'm African, so I know what she's talking about. And I'm going to give you an example in my own life. This is one of my best friends. She's not black. She doesn't speak the same home language as me, and she's much more aligned with Viktor. She's a big part of my life, and she's been at all sorts of big events in my life. And as such, she's been around my grandfathers, uncles, aunts, cousins, everyone who's important to me. I had to have a conversation with my chomi, explaining certain customs and certain things my family were going to expect from her. But I also had to explain to my family, this is the 21st century, like, don't be too strict on my suburban friend. Luckily, my family is very liberal, so it wasn't a big deal. They, met in the middle and danced all night. Also, in my household, where a very respect is given to everyone. No one has to earn that. But if there is disrespect, then we revoke the respect. So to hell with, you're an elder, like you just can't get away with snacks behavior. And I say all this to say I've been in her situation of melding two worlds, and from how she's speaking, it seems she just expected him to do as the Romans do. And some things are hard for people to compute. Even for me, the whole bowing thing, it is a lot. Imagine this white guy from Europe having to prostrate and put his head to the floor. Like, no, man, that doesn't make sense. There's a middle ground to respecting her family and also not being archaic. I also think it's odd for her family to expect this from a white person. Like, no offense to the white people, but like, I don't know, like there's a lot about the situation that confuses me, including and finally the marriage issue. As I noted earlier, Maria wants to be married and Viktor is not on the same page. Initially, it seems they just fundamentally have different ideas on marriage. He feels it's not necessary. Like, what's going to change in their lives? He's not going to love her more after marriage. Their lives are already incredibly integrated. Remember, they have a business together, the whole social media thing. They live together, they work together. Like, what is marriage going to change? And I thought, okay, this is just a difference in ideals. They should have honestly spoken about this in the beginning of their relationship and before they went like social media, like official and like doing all these things business wise. Like they should have had the conversation instead of it now becoming an issue 7 years later. Until he starts speaking about he won't marry her because she's not wife material. I was really thrown by the statement because what does that even mean? And also, that changes everything now because he's basically holding marriage over her head, talking about she doesn't act like a wife, she wakes up in the morning and scrolls TikTok for hours. Like, this is the job is like social media. So, of course, she's on TikTok all morning looking for trends, seeing what's happening in the world. I was like, what in heaven's name is going on in this man's head? Like, use it. And I started feeling like, no, man, he's playing in my girl's face. He's probably made promises to her in private, keeping her hooked on this idea that, one day they will be married. He just needs time. He needs to work through things. And we do learn that he has been gifting her promise rings on her birthday, which again, very strange behavior, very snacks behavior, because why give her the rings and like, why call them promise rings if you don't believe in marriage? And like, why on her birthday specifically? I also feel his attachment to her is not healthy. They have an exercise where they're meant to say why they're together. And he mentions no one will love him like she does. Alarm bells in my head. Because really, like, that's what you say when someone asks you, like, what you love about me. Like, not, she makes me laugh, she makes me feel safe, she's my best friend, she's kind. He talks about the fact that no one will love him like her. With all the background we know about him, I didn't like this answer. And it made me think about why he's still with her. He doesn't have a good relationship with his family. We don't have mention or see any of his friends. She clearly validates something in him. And the fact that she's been with him for so long, through thick and thin, marriage, no marriage, she's even willing to destroy or strain her relationship with her family. Like, she chooses him, and it seems no one in his life ever made the active choice for him, like to see him, to want him, but she does. And I feel he's clinging onto that specific feeling and not necessarily that he loves her. But I'm not going to hop on Viktor too much. I have to whack my African sister Maria just a little bit. She's going on and on and on about this marriage thing. She even has like a fake girl boss moment saying, I won't pick a man to marry me. But Sissy, wait, that's exactly what you've been doing. From my point of view, she's constantly begging him to marry her. And he's made it very clear he's not going to do that. She has to interrogate why she wants marriage so badly, because I do agree with him slightly. Like, it doesn't feel like it's with the best of intentions. It feels like patriarchal nonsense. Like, she wants to be chosen, and she specifically wants him to choose her. And I'm not gonna go into too much of it, like his race, like, but I hope it's not like a weird being chosen by a white man thing, because I did peruse their YouTube channel, and some odd things, odd things, odd things. They have this, they have the whole interracial shtick going on. And I just don't understand why she just doesn't leave him. Like, leave him, girl. Like, you're clearly not on the same page. You don't want the same things. It's causing friction with her family, but she's still fighting for this relationship. And I do feel a big part of it is, the social media thing. I do understand, she has this fear of building something and then having to pivot or start again. But like, look at Diera. She built this online empire with that bumpkin. She left him and she's flourishing, like she's thriving. We adore the girl. We follow her, all her business ventures. Everyone's wishing her the best. So why doesn't she believe in herself that she can do the same without him? She's a beautiful girl, and I'm sure a lot of their followers are willing to watch her build her own thing. The therapist also agrees, she also thinks they might be too connected, which is why they're still together, not necessarily for the right reasons. And he also did something earlier that really pissed me clean off. I hate when I'm with someone I care about and they're upset for whatever reason and they withdraw affection.
You get that door for me?
No.
That is a big no-no for me. Like, no matter what's going on, I demand kindness from the people around me, because that's how I believe I would behave. Like, I would never treat anyone I said I cared about like shit. It doesn't matter if I'm upset or whatever's happened. I actually think like that's a character flaw. No matter how I'm feeling, like, I wouldn't treat you like dirt. So Viktor is just giving me bad vibes. Like Maria says, that gave me the ick. Our 5-month update, we learned they're still together. He says the relationship with the family is much better. So, we're thankful for small miracles, I guess. I don't want to give witchy vibes as if I want all these relationships to burn. But me in this household, I'm not going to encourage nonsense. I want women, especially, yes, women, to be in healthy, loving, fulfilling relationships. And that's not what I see. But, if they love it, I like it. I'll just sit in my little corner. On to what I think is the worst couple here, Mike and Yasmin. I'm going to start this off by saying I'm very disgusted with Mike. Yes, disgust. I'm trying to stop myself from just having this be the bashing Mike segment, but I really have nothing to say about this man. So I'm going to try and make this specific one very quick and brief. I'm going to be dogging on him. If this is your king, you've been warned. So Mike and Yasmin, they've been together for 5 years and they're currently engaged. 2 kids, one he has from another relationship and one they have together. I find the beginning of the relationship to be really suspect and odd. She says she told his manager, who is like their mutual, she was looking for a short Nigerian man. And I'm already giving her a side eye. I really dislike when people talk about what they want in a partner and they mention ethnicity, race, skin color. Like, it's just very icky to me. It's very fetishy and it's usually rooted in like racist, xenophobic, fatphobic, colorist, all the things. It's like, it's just nonsense. But that's not why we're here. So I'm just gonna quickly move on from that. But she is on my watch list. We learned that their biggest issue is finances. She earns more than him and she contributes 70% of their bills. I'm not sure if it's just rent or total expenses. I'm leaning towards total expenses because we learn, she is like the main breadwinner in the house and he's been retrenched. I don't fault him. The global economy is on fire. We're being kept intact by AI and cryptocurrency bullshit. So everything is in dire straits. Things are tough. But the problem is, instead of discussing this like adults and planning a way forward, this is what he does.
Embarrassing to say, but literally I'll dress up like I'm going to work. We leave the house around the same time. And then I would literally circle around, and as long as she's gone to work, I'll just circle back home.
He says he didn't tell her because he's embarrassed. But he wasn't embarrassed enough to try and get another job, like any job. He was just content to be quiet and let her suffer under the weight of keeping their family afloat. He's also in a lot of debt, multiple credit cards, loans, so on and so forth. And he has a trauma around money. He grew up poor. He doesn't have good money management skills and spends as if he's never going to see money again because that's, how he grew up. So anytime he wants something, he gets it. And you can see it's to fill a hole he has, like, even if it's not financially suitable for him to do that. She even gives us an example of how he's going to buy like 7 perfumes. He's always ordering takeout, like even when there's food in the fridge. He's basically acting like a single man with no responsibilities. I think being irresponsible is something most people go through and it's fine. It feels like it's like kind of like a rite of passage, credit card debt that you shouldn't have. But there's a point when it becomes, where you stop making bad decisions based off your feelings and you begin to understand that there's a bigger picture, whether it's for your kids, it's for a goal you have or a new stage in life that you're in. It's like something you usually grow out of. The fact that he has 2 kids, a house and a fiance, and he's still so irresponsible, it really annoys me. But my biggest issue with him is that he's very jealous of her. He mentioned how it makes him feel small, that he doesn't earn as much as her, and that's also contributing to his spending because he wants to feel like a big man. This man with no job tells us he feels insecure when they first met up because he was driving like this beat up Corsa and she rocked up with her Q3. And during this difficult time, instead of searching, for a new job or networking, whatever it takes, he's at car dealerships looking at Audi Q4s. Why isn't he looking at T-Crosses, Hiluxes, Jators if he's going to be looking for cars? Why did it specifically have to be a Q4, a model that's higher than hers? It's because he feels in competition with her. He wants to one-up her. He wants to be better than her, even if it costs him. I think it's very dangerous to be with anyone, man, woman, non-binary, anyone, who is jealous of you because you just never know how far their jealousy is going to go. And I think jealousy is not a negative emotion on its own. It's just emotions. There's no good or bad emotions. They just are. It's your actions that are driven by your emotions that can be positive. but it just rubbed me the wrong way that he was specifically looking for an Audi Q4. There's just something very snacks about that. He also talks about how Yasmin treats him like a child, and like, of course she does. He acts like one. He even questioned if she's attracted to him because he feels she isn't, and I wouldn't blame her if she wasn't attracted to him. Like, this man who like, he washes the dishes and cleans around the house in exchange for sex. Like, he wants you to clap for him for doing basic and the bare minimum around the house. I honestly don't understand what she sees in him. The therapist does mention that, she might have a control issue, but like, in this situation, who wouldn't? Like, your fiance loses their job, and instead of telling you, they pretend as if they're going to work. Like, not only that, but he's still spending as if he's still working. Like, listen to this.
Treat
But me,
yourself.
if
Why
I
do you need
imagine,
to buy 7? Why can't you just say, okay, yeah, I want that one, and then when I got a
'cause I
little bit
don't
more
want
money, then
to.
I'll go and get that one. But
'Cause I
that
don't
doesn't
want
make
to.
sense.
This is not a normal human being. This is a man who wants to be treated like the man of a house, but he can't understand budget, basic wants and needs. Like, he doesn't act like it. Like, I just, oh, he really annoyed me. Like, every time I saw him on screen, I was just like, get him away from me. Moving on, their 5-month update, they're obviously still together, and surprise, surprise, she's pregnant. I do want to say congratulations to them. I hope Yasmin has a peaceful and healthy pregnancy. I'm also happy he found gainful employment, and hopefully he can continue therapy to treat this childhood trauma around money, and he can show up for his kids as the father they deserve and can depend on. Like, he just really annoyed me. He took no accountability, and we just moved on. But as a palate cleanser, I'd like to share this post from Substack, which illustrates my feelings about our last 2 couples. They have some things in common, and when I read this, it really resonated with my thoughts about them. Why do people act like they have Tomorrow to Love You by Natosha? We'll go. I can't wait to take you there. When things calm down, when I'm in a better place. Soon, soon, soon. And I'm sitting here in the loud, breathing, very real now. Heart open like a window that forgot how to close. Calendar already marking space for you. Softness already learning your name. Why do people move through love like time is guaranteed? Like my tenderness is a subscription that renews automatically. Like access to me will still be here next season. Like the version of me that wants you this gently will wait in the same spot indefinitely. I don't know how to love like that. When I feel something, it arrives in full sentences. It sits down at the table. It orders water for both of us. It reaches for your hand under the surface of the conversation. I don't bookmark people for later. I don't save affection in drafts. I don't understand the concept of emotional layaway. And maybe that's because there was a time in my life when I couldn't feel anything at all, where the days were flat, where my body was present, but my emotions were somewhere down a long hallway with the lights off, where I prayed and literally prayed, God, please let me feel again, even if it hurts, even if it's heavy. I just don't want to be numb. This right now, this overwhelming, inconvenient, badly timed, deeply felt life is the answered prayer. So forgive me if I don't understand why people treat love like it has an extension. I asked for this heart back, and I'll be using it while it's beating. You say you like me. You say you care. You say you're getting there. And I'm trying to figure out why care keeps arriving without action. Why the words are always dressed for tomorrow. Why the effort is always scheduled for next week. Why the version of you that chooses me loudly only exists in theory. I'm not a when things settle down woman. I'm not a after this month woman. I'm not a once I figure myself out woman. I'm here in real time loving you in present tense. Urgency is romantic to me. Not pressure, not rushing, but the natural, unmistakable movement of someone who knows they don't want to experience you passively. The text when you think of me instead of later. The plan made while the feeling is warm. The compliment spoken out loud instead of saved in your chest. The way you reach, not eventually, but instinctively. Because here is the quiet part no one says. Hesitation is a decision, and delayed love still changes the outcome. Every time you choose later, you are choosing a version of me that is learning how to need you less. Every time you wait, I am practicing how to live without you. Not in a dramatic way, not in a punishment way, but in the very natural, self-protective way a woman does when she realizes she's experiencing someone in real time who is only loving her in concept. I don't want to be loved when it's finally convenient. I don't want the version of you that shows up after the urgency has passed, after my hands have learned a different rhythm, after my heart has reorganized itself around my own life again. I want the love that moves, the love that says, I don't want to miss this. I don't want to experience you halfway. I don't want to keep acting like I have time, because the truth is, and maybe this is the part that scares people, you don't. None of us do. Not in a morbid way, in a very ordinary way. Days pass, feelings shift, windows close quietly. People grow in directions that no longer face you. And the softest version of someone, the version that wants you without calculation, is not a permanent installation. She is a moment, and I am that kind of woman. I love in real time, I miss in real time. I think of you and I tell you. I feel something and I move toward it. I'm not cool in love. I've never been good at pretending. I don't care. My heart has always been worn on the outside of my outfit like an accessory I refuse to take off. And I used to think that made me naive. Now I think it makes me honest. Because I would rather be the woman who loved you while it was happening than the woman who loved you perfectly in hindsight. So if you're waiting for the right version of yourself, for the right timing, for your life to look a certain way, for the fear to leave your body, for certainty to arrive, just understand this. My life is not on pause. My softness is not frozen in place. My availability is not a lifetime membership. I'm learning to give my now to people who know how to meet me here. Not later, not eventually, not when it's easier. Here, while my heart is open, while I'm looking at you like this, while the feeling is still warm. Because I don't want to keep experiencing almost love from people who swear they're on their way. And I don't want to act like I have tomorrow to be loved the way I am ready to be loved today. I just love that. Our next couple, Debbie and Kelvin. Another special mention for Debbie. She's a baddie. She's a baddie. She's a baddie. This couple's main issue is quality time. Kelvin is a successful private chef and restaurant owner, but he's not spending time with his girl Debbie. He's very unreliable and inconsistent, and he keeps telling her he's working hard now so he doesn't have to work later and they can spend more time together then. From the essay I read you, I'm sure you know I don't believe in this. Tomorrow is not promised for anyone, and who's to say once you retire the feelings will still be the same. So I feel he's very misguided, and I'm not too much on Kelvin because he is working this hard because during COVID, his mom lost her restaurant and he now owns the same shop and is doing this for her. I think that's very admirable. Oh, Jesus. And you can see the emotion on his mom's face. He's clearly a mommy's boy and she's done a really good job raising him, seemingly. So I understand why he wants to pay it forward. I just think it's like a matter of balance. Since he's doing well, he should hire help, even if it's like part-time for a date night or, just a day that he wants to spend with his girlfriend, because the way he treats her like an afterthought is not okay. There's a scene where they were supposed to be on a date, but he shows up late by an hour, 30 minutes. Like, that's just unacceptable. It also seems he's repeating his mom's behavior because she got divorced for the same reason. She was so focused on the business, her relationship fell apart. We don't have a lot of information about this, so I can't say too much about it, but he does say he thinks that was a mistake on her part, so it's up to him to not repeat her actions. There is a little bit of a red flag, other than a little bit of his misogyny coming out, talking about wanted to rest in her feminine energy. His sister and mom's involvement in the relationship, I thought, was very strange. He talks to them about the therapy, and first off, his mom doesn't believe in therapy, which to me tracks. She's an African auntie, so I'm not surprised. But the sister and mom make a comment about how they think Debbie is not the one. And he doesn't immediately tell Debbie this, he saves it for later. And it seems Debbie is not surprised and she was expecting it. And I don't think that's appropriate. You can have whatever thoughts you have about people you love and their relationships, but I personally, my opinion, think it's crossing a line telling someone you don't think this person is right for them. I think you can highlight behaviors, you can say changes, that are good or bad, things that you're spotting, but it leaves a sour taste in your loved one's mouth and it makes them feel unsupportive. And again, it's just my opinion. My friends have dated lots of losers that I thought didn't deserve them. And when I did voice this, instead of sharing things with me in the future, they distanced themselves from certain conversations. They didn't feel safe with me. They felt like I was going to judge them. And it really affected me because I want my friends to feel, many things about me, including safety, in a world that's full of all this harshness. I want to be a soft landing space. I also had someone accuse me of jealousy. So, sometimes people lose their minds in romantic relationships. And I'm not saying condone nonsense. Obviously, we aren't talking about situations where there's harm being done. That's a different story. I'm just talking about typical non-violent relationships. Being a sounding board, someone they can bounce their ideas from, someone they can feel support from, but also be honest with, getting, the sweet spot. It's just my thought. And I really like that Debbie seemed to stand up for herself. Like, she immediately told him, get your mother on the phone now. And she spoke to her about it. And it also seemed the mom was like changing her tune and she was much softer with her. And I don't like some of the things she said. She was like, there's too much at stake, for Debbie to leave her son, which to me is nonsense. Like, don't ever subscribe to the sunken cost fallacy. If it's time to leave, you must leave. It doesn't matter if it's been 2 months, 2 years, or 20 years. If it no longer serves you, move on. Debbie does mention she thinks his mom is jealous of them. Basically, she's a boy mom who's competing with a girlfriend way. We don't have information to confirm or deny this, so I can't really say a lot about that. Kelvin does say his mom does meddle a lot, so there does seem to be some sort of truth there, but we don't see anything that backs this up other than her comments about Debbie not being the one. Our 5-month update, they're still together. Debbie is now living her best life. She got a promotion, she's traveling. To me, it seemed she put a lot of things on hold, like to experience them with him, and she's not doing that anymore, so good for her. He also does seem to understand where she was coming from because he's seeing her less, and it did seem it was getting to him, so he's in her shoes now, which not exactly healthy, that the roles are just swapped. They didn't fix everything, but I'm hoping everything works out with this couple. I really did like them, and I think this is mainly an issue of time management. Like, no one is saying he needs to give up his dreams, but he can't keep pushing her to the side and expecting that she's always going to be there. And also, shout out to my girl Debbie. Like, I have no notes on her. She seems to have her head on straight. Like, nobody's perfect, but like she's close to it, and I'm rooting for her. And also, to be fair to Kelvin, he did seem like a nice guy, so I'm wishing him the best, and his restaurant as well. Now, moving on to the final and my other favorite couple, Dami and Jermaine. Where to begin? Where to begin? Like, I truly adore Dami. Like, she was so funny. She seemed like such a kind, warm-hearted person. Like, she immediately endeared herself to me. Like, I was all ears. And they're here because Jermaine is a workaholic. He started his own business and everything's going well, but he's working so much that he has very little to no time for her. They also sleep in separate rooms, and I'm assuming this is because of the baby who's 3 months old at this time. And you can see there's an emotional and physical distance. Like, I wasn't happy to see how far apart they were sitting at the initial session. They do get closer throughout the experience, but you could immediately tell there was something off. She knows that their lives have changed and they're going in different direction, and it's not a direction she wants it to go. We learned she was a corporate girly before she became a stay-at-home mom. She was a project manager, and you can just see how her face lights up talking about her job. And this is a red flag. She feels her entire identity is now mummy. He's got all this confidence, he's flying high, Mr. Big Shot, and she's just at home with vomit all over her. This is obviously an issue because she's lost her identity, and I do think that's tricky territory. In my opinion, in order to be a whole person, you need to have different parts of you that come together to make you. Does that make sense? Like, who you are career-wise, as a friend, a sister, a wife, a girlfriend, all these different facets of your life matter. And if you lean on any one too much, I think it destroys your sense of self. And it sounds like to me, the doll needs to go back to work. She talks about the independence and the freedom that she had as a career woman. She used to travel, she was getting promotions. I can also assume the different tasks also kept her on her toes, and there wasn't the monotony of the day to day, looking after kids. It's difficult leaving your baby, so maybe she can transition slowly back into work. Start part time and then work her way up from there. And childcare is very expensive, but she did say they are doing well, so I do recommend getting help. Whether you take the babies to creche, you get a nanny or an au pair, whatever it is, there's no shame in getting help. It doesn't make you less of a parent. And this is also going to help them spend more time together and also help her not feel so overwhelmed with everything. There is, however, a bit of a question mark in her going back to work because Jermaine wants another baby, but specifically a girl. I'm not going to give too much of my thoughts on wanting a specific gender. I do think this is odd and not healthy for your children. You never know if they decide to show up in the world in a way that's not typical for their gender. Is that going to be okay with you? Why a girl? Why not just a happy baby? But I'm just going to leave it there. This is a very sensitive topic for them because they did have a girl and they lost her due to sickle cell. So sickle cell is an inherited blood disorder. It's very serious and it can affect your day-to-day life, and it disproportionately affects Black people and people of color. So there's very little research and recourse around this topic, and there's obviously a lot of pain and hurt between them. Losing a child is not easy, and I can't even imagine the pain that they're feeling. You can tell this is a very sore subject for them, and I can't even imagine. I'm not even gonna try and analyze their reactions. I don't feel comfortable doing that. Just know it was really sad seeing them process their feelings, and I'm hoping this is something that they can work through and come to a conclusion form that makes them both happy and at peace. And Jermaine does seem very receptive to her feelings and her commentary. You can tell he really does appreciate his family, but he's also doing the thing that Kelvin was doing of, oh, I'm working hard right now and I'm grinding. I'm like getting to everything because I retire early and spend the rest of the time with my family. But like his family needs him now. Again, I've worked with families who have had high demand jobs, and I had one particular family. The dad was a doctor, and he always made time for his family. Like whenever he had a free moment, even if it was during my work hours or it was the only day in the week that he had off, he made sure to spend time with his kids because he didn't want to miss anything and he wanted to be there for his kids as he should. I had a busy father, and all I remember in my childhood is he was like never there for the moments that mattered to me, and I don't want his kids to feel that same feeling. You know, we also learn he has a slightly inappropriate relationship with someone he works with, a work wife, if you will. I won't go too deep into that because we don't know all the details. But Jermaine, don't play with fire. I'm really rooting for this couple, and I'm hoping that they can work through things and come out as the beautiful family they seem to be. I do also think they should continue with therapy. There's clearly a lot of things they need to work through, and it seemed to have benefited them. Like the progression, you could literally see that they were getting lighter and lighter throughout the sessions. And 5 months later, we learn they're still together and they seem a lot happier, and I love that for them. Again, they were one of my favorite couples, and I'm really, really rooting for them. And I hope, their family is just, happily ever after. And that includes my individual commentary. I really loved the show. It was enjoyable from an entertainment aspect. I also love the mess and seeing them open up about their relationship. I love that it was a lot of Black people. And like I said in the beginning during my watch, I was also reading bell hooks during this watch, and there were like so many connections I was making to everything that she wrote in the book. Like, particularly the thing that was standing out was like this idea that patriarchy robs everyone of true, meaningful love. All the men had this thing of, I'm a man of the house, this leader of the house, that, and they placed all this pressure on themselves to keep their lives intact and project this image of masculinity, like even if it was in a false state, not showing any emotions that they thought were unattractive or feminine. They kept expressing how they couldn't be vulnerable with the women in their lives because that made them less than. They had to keep everything together and to be strong, and having emotion isn't like a weakness. And I hate that this is projected onto young boys, and seeing how it manifests later in their lives, it just really makes me sad. And I'm not going to say this is all in their heads and their own doing. There's definitely this idea that a man must lead and have money and have it all together, and you don't let things get to you. But these are ideals that are always taken to the extreme, and it only hurts men and the people around them. And you can tell a lot of the women really wanted them to open up about what they felt. They felt like they were in the relationships alone. They wanted to know that they were in a mutual feeling of love, like in actions that were not robotic, but being meaningful and thoughtful as well. And you can't have love without letting your guard down. Like, you can't love someone and be dishonest, like this artifice and false sense of self. How can they be love when you don't know each other? Like, you don't know the real them or the real you. I'm speaking like a love practitioner. I love the woo-woo stuff. So I really love this show. I think love is a beautiful thing, and I'm happy to learn more, experience more. And I'm really grateful to them that they chose to be vulnerable and let the rest of us into their lives. I'm really looking forward to season 2. Hopefully we can get some more LGBTQ relationships and maybe longer sessions. I think following them for a longer time would be better because there was lots that was left unsaid. I had a lot of questions, but I understand maybe the logistics of that might be unrealistic, but yeah, thank you so much for staying with me until the end. Let me know what you thought about the show and the couples. My name's Cynthia. This is Reality TV and Things, and I'll see you in the next one.